In this video, I'll show you both the coding aspect of encapsulation, and I'll also show you a visual representation of what encapsulation in Java means. So we'll start with actually the visual portion, and I'll show you an example or a way of thinking of what encapsulation is. It may sound like a big theory, but it's actually very, very simple. Encapsulation in Java simply means to add a layer of protection for something you don't want to be changed easily. So we can think of an example like an integer variable. So let's say something like 5, and let's say this is stored in a variable called value. And we don't want this 5 to be changed easily. So what we'll do is add some layer of protection or some type of constraint before someone is able to change this 5 to another value. So what if we want the user to only change this 5 to a value that's greater than 10? And if it's less than 10, then we don't want this 5 to be changed. Well, then we can add that restriction, and then this 5 will only be changed when the user puts in a value like something that's greater than 10, like 11 or 15. So let's say the value is 15 that the user puts in, and they're putting in this value to specifically change this variable. Then this will change to 15 because it's greater than 10, because that's the restriction we're trying to put. So let's say this is greater than, so if value inputted is greater than 10, then this will change. But let's say they don't put 15 and they put 7, then this will not change, and this will remain 5. Another way of looking at this is, let's say you have an art piece. So let's say this is your art piece and has whatever piece of art, and you don't want this art piece to change because you have an exhibition the next day. So if an intruder comes, they might ruin the art piece and do something like this, which you don't want. So what you would do is put this in some type of safe. So basically what's going to happen is that you're going to have a passcode for this, and only when you enter this passcode, then you or anyone who has access to this will be able to access the artwork. And if an intruder comes, they will not be able to access this because you don't want this to be changed to something like this. And the only people who will come here will you trust, and hence you know that they won't like ruin the art piece. So it's the same with encapsulation. You're basically only letting people change the value if you feel it is within the restrictions of what you want to change it to. So here we have an example where we could kind of show the negative effects of just not using encapsulation. So here we have a class called cat, and here we have the test class with the public static void main. So here, if I make an instance of the cat class like this, let's say I do something like this, and we have c dot height equals. So with this, you can see I've actually changed the height successfully for the cat class, even though this height isn't really valid. So if I print this out, you're gonna see I have this instead of cat, 3 that I put in cat. If you're working with a team, for example, and they just changed it to this value, which is just not possible in any way, then it could just break your program. So it's very important to add some restrictions, and that's where encapsulation come in. And this is where we would use getters and setters, also called mutators and accessors. So essentially, it's 2 different methods. It's a get method and a set method. So get height and set height. So you could manually type this, or just automate this with the program like Eclipse you're using, for example. You could just put out those methods by default. So here you could say generate getters and setters, and I just want it for height, and then generate. And you could see this is essentially what we have. So for set height, again, we're just setting the height, but we could add restrictions. So let's say we want the height So if the height we receive here is less than 20, or sorry, greater than 10, and height is less than 20, then we want this height to equal height. So when I say this height, I'm referring to the height in this class, and then when I'm referring to height, I'm referring to the height that's been given into this method. So we can test this out as a parameter, and then if we run the same test again, you're going to see it hasn't changed because it doesn't match the requirements of setting a height. So that's how you kind of protect the value, because this value doesn't make sense. A cat's height can't be this big. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. This is a basic overview of what encapsulation is, and I'll go into more complex examples in next future videos. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.